Hey everyone, it's Pam, and today I am doing another video about Vampire: The Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Since I made my first one just after the initial game announcement, we have received a ton of new information. The developers have released all of the different clans that will be available to choose from on when the game releases. As well, during our E3, there was a gameplay trailer, an extended gameplay trailer, and various gaming sites have released gameplay footage of the sort of demo area that they were allowed to see at E3, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about everything we know so far, as well as give you a bit of my opinions on it. So I'm just going to be responding to the extended Bloodlines 2 trailer that was released at E3. This is not really a reaction since I have seen this a few times before. I just wanted to sort of have it fresh in my mind so I can talk about all the sort of comments I had about it and what I think about it and what it's showing us. I do not usually record like this. This is my webcam and terrible lighting, just like the glow from my computer screen, my normal habitat. But yeah, I'm just going to start the video and we'll talk a little bit about what we see.
I guess I have to be the one to tell you.
So this is the pre-alpha gameplay footage, as it says. This is obviously the part of the mass embrace where you and a bunch of other people were turned into vampires.
I've seen it raised by fire, shaken by quakes.
Whatever you do in my city, I will hear about it. Seattle is firmly under my control.
So just wanted to comment a bit about that. Someone says Seattle is under his control, although what we've seen about the story is that there's a bit of a shakeup that's happened and no one really has complete control over Seattle, at least based on what it said on the website and things. So this guy might be a little bit deluded or might be a little bit of wishful thinking involved.
You're obviously new to this whole existence. But truth is, most of you types won't even make it a whole year. So you probably figure...
Oh, let's go back a little bit here. So you get to see your apartment here. The person who's talking to you is Dale, who is your roommate. He's another thin blood, but he seems much more reclusive. He's happy to just stay in the apartment and drink blood bags rather than go out and make moves like you surely will be doing during the course of the game. I really like this apartment, like your haven here. Looks a little bit bigger than the one in Santa Monica. Not super fancy, but what I really like is this big board that's set up. I'm not sure if the player character has done that or if Dale has done it, but if this will be the source of a lot of information regarding what's going on in the city and types of like quests and things and trails of information that you can follow. And I think this is a really cool idea. I'm sure there will also be an in-game journal of some sort to keep track of things, but I really like this bulletin board idea.
So you probably figured out that you need to drink blood. You can't just do whatever you want. Cities are carved up by political...
So these are the resonances. This is something that is in the rulebook, I believe, as well. It is the thing that was sort of alluded to with the ARG game that happened, that sort of revealed that there was going to be a Bloodlines 2. What's Lily doing in the background? Making noise, sorry. So people will have different resonances. I forget what they're called. There's like an anger one and a sadness one, and you can sort of gain people's emotions by feeding on them when they have these particular resonances. It seems like it's also going to be another way of developing your character. So maybe if you feed off of one type in particular, maybe you'll get stronger in that way, or maybe there's sort of temporary buffs to help you in whatever you're doing. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. So you can see sort of how the person is feeling and sort of what kind of buff or whatever you're going to get when you feed on them. There's also going to be multiple ways that you can feed. You can feed in a way that will give you a lot of blood, but less of the resonances, or you can feed in a way that you will really get those resonances, but you'll like take less actual blood from the person that you're feeding from.
Political factions never tell anyone about what you are. See, vampires are extremely territorial. Unwittingly poach in someone's territory and suddenly whip! We have one rule. You don't break the
There's Dale.
Masquerade.
There's a bunch of Malkavians. So that was one of the abilities that you will start off with, although you won't have a clan to start out the game. You will have 3 different skills to basically choose from. One is about bats. You can send bats after people or sort of soar through the night. Another one is about turning into mist to go through vents, or using mists even to like shroud people and hide from them or even choke them. So there's going to be a lot more verticality in this game than there was in the original. In Bloodlines 1, you were basically always on the ground. There wasn't any flying or jumping tall buildings or anything. Or this, it seems like there's going to be a lot more opportunities of sort of different paths to go. You can jump from great heights. You can jump up to great heights. So there's going to be more paths to take as you just walk down the street or through a warehouse or whatever.
Welcome to the first day of the rest of your death. Having fun yet?
So here we see the shadow of the player character. It does look, based on everything I've seen and everything I've heard, like it will be first person only, which is somewhat disappointing. I always played it mostly in third person when I played Bloodlines 1. I'm sure other people who have problems with first person and, maybe motion sickness will also have issues with that. It does occasionally like pull out to that third person view if you're doing like a special move in combat. But yeah, it does look, unfortunately, like it's all first person in terms of actually playing the game. Here, we can see a message has come up on your phone, I assume. You don't have to go all the way back to your computer every time you want to get a message. So this message refers to the factions wanting to chat at the bar, the coffee shop, the club, and the parking garage, which would indicate there are at least 4 factions. Outstar has done a really great video seeing what the factions might be. There's probably a few that we are familiar with, like the Camarilla, possibly the Anarchs, and then some that I haven't heard of before. So you will be able to do quests for factions. You will be able to sort of play factions against each other for your own benefit. Let's continue.
I'm happy to see you accepted my invitation. All I need you to do is to find a thin blood by the name of Slug. He's in hiding, but the Nosferatu most likely know where he is. Once you find Slug, all you have to do is purchase some information off of him. Feel free to use whatever methods are needed to get him to comply.
I assume your handlers have...
So this is a quest that was in the gameplay demos that they were doing at E3. They were hands-off demos, so it was someone from the marketing team at Paradox or Hardsuit Labs that was actually playing the game, and then the journalists who were there just got to make the decisions. I watched a number of these. The best one was probably the rock, paper, shotgun one, if you want to check it out. But this is the quest that focused on finding this guy named Slug and getting some information from him.
Sent you to find our smelly friend. You can find Slug under the freeway, in a place the locals call the jungle. He's smart enough to hide among the homeless down there, but not quite smart enough to do it well. Talk to him about coming to see us, and no one needs to know. We'll let you keep anything you've been promised from whoever sent you to me. But you'll want to watch yourself. Lots of unsavory animals in the jungle.
I don't know you. That's a good start.
Slug is a coward, but he survived this long on his own, so he's bound to be a handful. He's also not the only one you'll need to look out for.
So from both this trailer and the gameplay footage that I've watched, the combat is something that probably looks the least impressive, which isn't so much of a surprise since the combat in Bloodlines 1 was really not the part that anyone liked. I was generally fine with it, but watching the combat here, it all looks very sort of weightless. The animations don't ever really look like you're making contact with anyone, so I think there's definitely some work to be done there. As well, facial animations and things when you talk to characters up close aren't quite as impressive, even though obviously the graphics have come a long way since Bloodlines 1. One of the things that really impressed me was just the facial animations and just the faces of the characters. They all had such a glint in their eye and great animations, and it doesn't seem to be quite as good now. However, it is just the pre-alpha footage, so of course it can get better from here. I'm kind of concerned. They say that the release date's going to be Q1 2020, and based on just like some of the animations and things in this, I'm not super confident that they're going to make that date. If they don't, that wouldn't be the end of the world. I'd much rather them sort of polish it up as much as they can. At the moment, like, it's not bad enough to be a deal breaker for me, but I think they could definitely sort of tighten up the animations, especially around combat and conversations with people, to make it look just a little more impressive overall.
Whatever methods are needed to get him to comply.
We'll let you keep anything you've been promised.
Just let me go. Come on. Just let me leave.
So here you can see a bunch of different conversation options, and I'm happy that they put this into the extended trailer. Something I've been finding with a lot of RPGs is that they don't show the important parts, like Cyberpunk, for example. I'm sure that game will be great, but they really focus just like all on the combat and the action, when what I want from an RPG is that RPG playing, that building a character, that choosing your paths and choosing your dialogue options. So I'm happy that in this extended trailer, at least, they did give us some of that. So you can see here on the options, there's negotiation, there's coercion, and then there's just different choices. So you can say, no, I'm not going to cooperate with you, or yes, what would you like? So that's cool. There seems to be a lot of dialogue options, which is nice. I think some of these depend on your humanity. The more humanity you have, the more sort of option you have to talk your way through things. Whereas as your humanity drops, maybe you don't get so much of a choice or an option to do that. So the one thing I will say that I do like the looks of is the different vampire powers, particularly the kind of thaumaturgy stuff that looks really interesting. It's more the melee combat that looks less impressive. The feeding looks cool. I don't know. The feeding reminds me a lot of the first one. It's not quite as like intense of like jumping on and wrapping yourself around someone, but it's still, I don't know. It still looks satisfying to me. All right. Oh, there's Outstar. Check out her videos. They're all very good and much more informative than mine. So just some things that did not come up over the course of watching the trailer. The developers have said that your typical playthrough will be about 25 to 30 hours long, which is a pretty good length, I think. I know a lot of people are used to RPGs that last for hundreds of hours. That's not particularly what I look for in a game, so that 25 to 30 hours is great for me. As well, I'll probably want to play through it as multiple clans, so I'll definitely get some replayability out of it there. They've also said that while you do start out as a thin blood, it will take approximately 5 hours before you're able to select the clan that you want to play as and gain those abilities. The consensus among people seems to be that you will be able to belong to a clan through diablerie, which is feeding off another more powerful vampire than you in order to take some of their abilities. I'm not totally sure how this is going to work since you do get to choose your clan. I'm not sure if the choices that you make will sort of railroad you into which vampire you're going to diablerize in order to take their powers, or whether at some point you'll be given sort of like a platter of vampires to choose to feed from. I'm not totally sure about that. But as we knew from the beginning, you will start this game as a thin blood, sort of one of the least powerful kinds of vampires. You will get a choice of abilities to use that aren't related to your clan. The first one is called Chiropteran, which is all about bats. You can glide through the air like a bat, or you can cast a spell called Bat Swarm, which will envelop your enemies in bats, which will sort of damage them and sort of disable them temporarily as they're trying to deal with all the bats flying around their head. The other one is called Mentalism, and this one is sort of about telepathic abilities. So this could be pulling an object towards you with sort of like force powers, or it can be levitating. And the last one is called Nebulation, which is all about mist. So you can turn into mist and go through vents, or you can envelop someone in mist, causing them to be unable to see and even choking them when the mist enters their lungs. A few other things we've learned about the game or can tell from the trailers is that it doesn't look like the protagonist is going to be voiced. At least in those gameplay demos, there was no voice for the protagonist. I haven't heard if this is just sort of placeholder until the game is ready or if that's how it's going to be. Generally, I like voiced protagonists more, but if I'm ever going to do a Let's Play of this, which I might want to do, to be honest, since I've spent so much time on my channel talking about this game, it's actually better for me. I find it makes for a much more interesting Let's Play if I get to voice the protagonist myself, so I actually think that would be kind of cool if that's the way that happened. Otherwise, the voices we heard in the trailer, all the voice acting seemed very good. Brian Mitsoda has said that the voice acting cast, which they haven't revealed yet at all, is very impressive, and I believe him. I think that there will be some great voice acting in this game. I just hope that the writing is sort of up to snuff, and I think it will be too based on who's writing it. But yeah, a combination of great voice acting and great dialogue is what is going to make this game for me. The other thing is that even though some of the animations didn't look perfect, all of the backgrounds and environments really looked beautiful. They've done a lot of work sort of bringing Seattle to life, and I think they've done a really good job with it. It is going to be permanently nighttime, so you don't have to worry about going into the sun and having it damage you. It also takes place around Christmas, so it is sort of in the wintertime, and yes, it looks beautiful. I'm pretty sure it's going to be hub-based, so I'm very excited to explore Seattle and see what the sort of politics the game developers have talked about. I'm pretty sure there's going to be stuff about the sort of the tech industry and how that is going to impact people, because it would impact vampires as well as humans, so that will be a very interesting thing to see. As well, we knew from before that one of the big quest lines in the game is going to be reaching out and finding all the other people who were in the mass embrace with you and sort of finding out how they are taking to their new vampire lifestyle. Also, you will be able to pick your background, so that will come into play as well, like what your occupation was, if you had a family. Those should also impact the events that you see throughout the game. So now let's just touch on the 5 different clans that have been announced that will be playable when the game first releases. Apparently there will be a couple other clans added as DLC afterwards, but on release, the first clan that was announced was the Brujah. And Brujah are known for their strength and for being rabble-rousers. They are the anarchists, they are the political discontents. In Bloodlines 1, these were all of the anarchs, like Nines Rodriguez and Smiling Jack and Damsel. They are the ones that, always want to fight the power and are never really with the Camarilla. The disciplines that the Brujah use all focus on strength and speed. So you've got Potence, which is all about strength. Brujah can punch people very, very hard, send them flying through the air if they want. They also have abilities that are going to get like Earth Shock, which will basically cause like a small earthquake smashing down into the ground, damaging things around them. And then Celerity is the speed one, which will allow them to move very quickly, so quickly that they can barely be seen by the naked eye. If you like being sort of like a bruiser type character, someone who's going to use a lot of melee, someone who is going to sort of push the limits, not play by the rules, all about strength and speed, then Brujah might be for you. The second clan that was announced was the Tremere, and Tremere are the ones who seek power through knowledge. They're always looking to learn more. They're very much into the occult as well as scientific pursuits. Basically, they just want to learn everything there is to know, and they will use somewhat unethical methods in order to learn those things. They're very much distrusted among the vampires just because of the sort of sorcery that they end up using. In Bloodlines 1, I don't think there were too many characters that were Tremere. There was Maximilian Strauss, who was the regent and primogen of the clan in in LA. And other than that, I can't really think of any other characters that were Tremere, but they're one of the most fun classes. Although Malkavians were always my favorite in Bloodlines 1, Tremere are the ones that had the coolest abilities, I think. So Thaumaturgy is their big one, and that is basically blood magic. And there's all kinds of really cool things you can do with that. There's an ability called Skewer, where you use some of your own blood, project it at an enemy, and it will cause sort of blood spikes to come up and damage them, and then eventually draw the blood back into you. There's one called Purge, which makes your enemies vomit blood, which again, some of that blood will return to you, making you more powerful and able to use more abilities. And then the best one, and one of the higher level spells, at least in Bloodlines 1, is Blood Boil, where you make the blood of your enemies boil until they eventually explode, which was always one of the most fun abilities to do, especially when you could do like a mass blood boil and could just explode everyone around you. And the Tremere's second discipline is called Auspex, and that is all about staying hidden, being secretive. With that, they can do a basically astral projection where they can travel sort of unseen throughout the world, basically projecting their spirit out, I guess, in order to scout around, not be seen. And then the other one is Aura Sense, where you can see the aura of any sort of living things around you. You can even see through walls, see, where there's enemies or potential victims around you in order to plan your next move. The next clan is the Toreador, and these are the artists of the vampire world. They are obsessed with art and beauty. They have generally the highest humanity of everyone. They can blend in much easier with kind society than other kindred can. They're all about sort of appearances and making art and appreciating art. They're the ones you're probably seeing drinking glasses of wine in the trailer, and it's all about sort of seduction as opposed to that sort of brute force and power that some of the other clans focus on. Examples of Toreador characters from Bloodlines 1 are, of course, Vivi, also Isaac Abrams and Ash Rivers. Anyone who's sort of seen as an artist in sort of Hollywood or a performer or those kind of things tend to be the Toreadors. The major discipline for the Toreadors is presence, and it fits very well with the kind of vampires they are. The skills you can use for this include awe, which basically makes people around you awestruck, sort of unable to move or react. They also have something called entrance, which basically forms a group of people around you who will follow you wherever you go. They also have celerity, which they share with the Bruja, which again is all about increasing your speed, or conversely slowing down those around you. The next clan is the Ventru, and these tend to be the leaders among vampires. A lot of the Camarilla are made up of Ventru. They are the CEOs and the politicians. They want to manipulate events and control those people around them. From Bloodlines 1, Prince LaCroix was a Ventru, and he was always manipulating the player and sort of bending them to his will, no matter what the player actually wanted to do. The Ventru see themselves as the keepers of the Masquerade, the ones who are responsible for keeping vampire society in working order. One of the major disciplines that they have is Dominate, and Dominate it basically is just what it sounds like. It will allow them to dominate the will of others around them. So one of the skills that they'll get is called Mesmerize, which will basically put someone in a trance where they are unable to react. It seems like most of the disciplines actually have something like Mesmerize that just renders those around them incapable of acting. And the second one is Command, which is much more sort of aggressive and focused, where you can order someone to do something, to attack someone else, to move, those kind of things. And their second discipline is called Fortitude, and that is all about physical resilience. So some of the fortitude abilities that the Ventru will have access to are Absorb, which will just make them more resilient to attacks, able to kind of absorb anything coming at them, as well as Personal Armor, which basically is like a stone-like barrier around them, again, reducing the amount of damage they would take in combat. And the final clan that was announced both surprised and excited me, and that is the Malkavians. I love Malkavians in Bloodlines 1, and I'm really hoping that they put as much effort into them in this game as they did in the first one. In Bloodlines 1, they had completely different dialogue than all the other characters because they were touched by madness, and I really hope that that continues in Bloodlines 2. Malkavians are mad. They're known as the lunatics. Sometimes they're known as oracles because they can see things that other people can't see. It seems, based on the little Malkavian trailer they put out, that what they're focusing on with Malkavians this time around is the fact that they're never alone. They have voices in their head, they can get inside the heads of others, they're always sort of hearing things which may or may not make sense at the time. So it really seems like it's going that direction as opposed to them just being batshit crazy and talking to stop signs like in Bloodlines 1. So I'm really excited to see what they do with Malkavians. I hope that they are as much fun to play as they were in Bloodlines 1. The disciplines for Malkavians, the most interesting one is of course dementation, which basically can make other people, give them a little taste of their madness. And while the Malkavian can handle it because it's part of who they are, not everyone can handle seeing and hearing those things quite as well. So dementation will include the skill Haunt, where it will basically cause someone around them to panic, run away in fear because they are seeing and hearing things that they can't handle. And the other thing is Berserk, which will cause people to fly into a rage, sort of attacking whatever's around them with very little concern for their own well-being. I hope in addition to these ones that they have listed as the Malkavian skills, we also get to use dementation in order to sort of dominate people and get them to do what we want, make them see maggots in their food or what have you. The other discipline they have is Auspex, which again they share with the Tremere, and that's all about staying hidden, seeing auras, and using that psychic projection spell. Oh, and I forgot to mention, from Bloodlines 1, Malkavians of note were Alistair Grout, who was the Primogen, who you go through his mansion, and of course Jeanette and Therese Foreman. So that means of the original 7 clans that were in Bloodlines 1, the missing ones are the Gangrel and the Nosferatu. I can sort of understand why these ones were left out. The Gangrel are a little bit similar to the Bruja. They've got more sort of affinity towards animals, and they're very like animalistic in their disciplines and their skills. And Nosferatu, which do seem to have a big role in the game in terms of talking to them, Nosferatu was never a clan that I wanted to play with because people reacted to you negatively. It was a lot more focused on stealth. It was very interesting in Bloodlines 1 because all the reactions that characters would have to you were different if you were a Nosferatu than any other clan. But yeah, I can see why they didn't focus on that one for release. So I'm sure there will be more information released over the coming months, but for now, the main question I have, both for myself and for you, is what clan do you plan on playing first? For me, it's definitely a toss-up. I love my Malkavians, although they sometimes seem like they would make a better second or third playthrough as opposed to a first playthrough. In terms of gameplay style, especially combat style, it's definitely Tremere that I like most. I just love those blood magic abilities and making people explode. That's like the most exciting combat ability. But also I really like the Bruja just for their personality. I like their sort of rabble-rousing and sort of wanting to go against who's ever in charge and sort of fight the power. That is very appealing to me, even if a sort of melee combat style wouldn't really be what I would go for normally. Yeah, I don't know. And then Toreadors are great too because they're the most human, and I feel like they'll have the most opportunity for sexy times, which is something I'm very much looking forward to. Honestly, the only clan that I have no desire to play is Ventru because, you know, fuck the man. So yeah, I'll have to decide. Honestly, it'll probably be Tremere and then Malkavian, but I'll see. But let me know what you think of all the information that has been released. What clan do you plan on playing first? And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.